Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. The problem is that they are one of the most boring cults on the face of the planet. I mean, seriously, if you're going to be a cult, at least be a good one, right? But I'm not just blowing hot air about a religious organization that I used to belong to and no longer do. They do have some actual measurable traits that make them a cult. I'll be going through a couple of different models to show that Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. The one that I'm going to be focusing on in this video is Dr. Stephen Hassan's BITE model. The BITE model consists of 4 elements: behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control, all spelling out the word BITE. We're going to start with behavior control. The list that you see before you comes from Dr. Stephen Hassan himself. It comes from his website for the Freedom of Mind Resource Center. As you can see there, I've highlighted a bunch of points. These are all points that the Jehovah's Witnesses do fit. I'm going to cover this as broadly as possible because I would like to get all 4 letters within this video. But you'll note some of these things are like who you associate with, what you're wearing. The Jehovah's Witnesses regularly say to not associate deeply and intimately with worldly people, which is their term for anyone outside of the organization. So you are not permitted to live with these people. You're strongly discouraged from it. You aren't permitted to date these people, or at the very least, you're strongly discouraged from it. They talk about your dress and grooming. They say that at any point, somebody could see you on the street, know that you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they could be stumbled by something you're wearing. So they try and make sure that they control what you're wearing, not just at meetings, but outside of it. And of course, within meetings, one of the major announcements that the witnesses have just undergone was that sisters can now wear pants to the meeting. So you can see how behavior control does fit in with Jehovah's Witnesses' whole branding. I'm sure I could go on, but if you think I missed something really important, let me know in the comments. Now, information control is a much bigger category for the witnesses. You'll note that I didn't highlight only one point. That one point being control through cell phone with texting, calls, internet tracking. And that's not even necessarily because it doesn't apply to the witnesses, but it's just because I don't think it applies very regularly to the witnesses. The elders will use texting and calls to try and keep track of members, but there's not a lot of like tracking through your cell phone use or anything. They're not monitoring your cell phone. But you'll note the other points very much apply. The witnesses are regularly fed information through the faithful and discreet slave, their governing body, by use of the Watchtower, by use of jw.org. They're encouraged to do research using these resources, and they are discouraged from looking up sources about their organization outside of the website. And they are especially discouraged from looking up any information coming from people who used to be members. They usually categorize this sort of information as apostate literature. They often twist Jesus' words to make sure that other members are spying on each other. If one member is offended by the actions of another, he can call them out or even go to the elders about it. And they're encouraged to do so. They're encouraged to confess their sins. However, that confession will often lead to a judicial committee if they feel it's necessary, or will lead to some level of a taking away of privileges from the congregation. There's that reward and punishment system coming back from behavior control here. Thought control is another big one. That first point jumps out to me right away because as witnesses, we are told to call our organization the truth. If somebody was to leave the organization, we would say, oh, they left the truth. That point number 3, how many times have you been told to avoid bad association? All of those Bible quotes that they use, all of those things that they pull from the Bible to turn into little sayings that they then use to control your thoughts, control your behavior, to go back to the behavior control. And of course, the doubting or questioning of the governing body is often treated as leanings into apostasy, of leanings into questioning the truth. You wouldn't want to question the truth. The truth is unquestionable, isn't it? Is it not? Finally, emotional control. I know I myself have a problem with expressing anger, with expressing my emotions, because I was taught to conceal those things. I was taught to put those things away because those were not Christian qualities. We're all told that we're unworthy. We're told that these things that we do in the congregation, whether that's carrying a mic, whether that's serving as a ministerial servant, whether that's cleaning an assembly hall, those are privileges. So if we aren't allowed to do these privileges, it's because there's something wrong with us. It's because we're not living up to our potential. We're told that we are good for nothing slaves and that we should be grateful that Jehovah is using us in his service. We're taught to fear thinking independently. We cannot think without Jehovah. We cannot think without the publications that the organization is giving us. We are afraid of the outside world. The outside world has nothing to do with the peace and the prosperity of the congregation. We're scared to lose out on everlasting life. And especially, we are scared that if we screw up in any way, or if we decide that this organization, this religion is not for us, that we will be shunned by our whole friends and family. If we were to start questioning the group, if we were to start questioning the governing body, suddenly we would be at risk. We would be under suspicion because now suddenly we're having independent thinking. We're thinking like Satan. We're thinking like a rebel and thinking anything against the governing body. Even if the governing body changes that sometime in the future, we are engaging in selfish thinking. All the thinking is for the governing body. How many times have witnesses been told sometime in the future we may get instructions that make no sense? That we look at it and from a strategic or from a human standpoint, they don't make any sense, but to just obey and to trust. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list, and you'll note that I didn't even cover all the points that I highlighted. But you may also note that the witnesses didn't just have a few select points here and there. They had a lot. There were a lot of points that they match. Now, they're not outwardly crazy. They don't look crazy to people. They're not going out and doing blood sacrifices in the full moon. They're just normal people. And to me, that's one of the things that makes them so dangerous. The witnesses are just sort of normal people that have gotten themselves involved with a religious organization that has some very appealing beliefs. But behind it all is this series of rules, series of mechanisms of control that they've put in place to make sure that the members are not stepping out of line. Now, this was only one measurement that I'm going to do. In another separate video, I'm going to be taking a separate matrix that actually grades them and actually grade them on how severe of a high control group they actually are.